Susan Bennett. You may not know her name as a household word, but you have heard her voice. Many of you already have had a brief conversation with her. Susan is the voice of Siri, that somewhat temperamental iPhone feature that attempts to answer any question you ask her. She's also the voice of Delta Airlines and many more, as I mentioned. A lot of Fortune 500 companies have used her. She sings jingles, and she's been doing all this stuff for 25 years. Susan Bennett, welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Actually, what I should have said, I should have pushed the button and made that little tone. Go ahead, Pedro. Oh, he doesn't have the tone. Hi, Siri. How are you?
Hello, Bob.
I know, you have to go into that other voice.
You just blew his mind. It's too much already. It's too much.
Now, I saw you on David Letterman, and that was a really funny thing. And my first question, which Joe says you didn't know you were Siri for a while, is how did this suddenly come out now?
Well, actually, I disclosed it myself. After debating for 2 years whether to do it or not, I've known for, since Siri was introduced in 2011 that it was my voice.
Oh, you did know from the very beginning?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't really decide what I wanted to do with it because I wasn't sure what would happen with the information. And so I did a lot of thinking and debating, and finally my husband and son prevailed, and I thought, well, I may be missing out on an opportunity here, so let me just see what happens.
So wait a minute, why did you hesitate? Is there part of you that annoys the anonymity of being a studio talent voice?
Yes, I'll have to say that anonymity was probably the biggest question for me. As a voiceover talent, especially in this day and age, we're all judged by how we look and our age and all that kind of thing. And the great advantage to being a voiceover talent at this particular time is that we all audition, via the computer and email and FTP sites, and therefore people never really have to know who we are, what we look like, how old we are, where we're from, where we live, any of that stuff. We're judged solely on the sound of our voices. And so I wasn't sure I wanted to give that up, and I wasn't sure I wanted to deal with notoriety and public scrutiny and all that kind of thing. And finally, my family prevailed, and I just decided, well, I may be missing out on something fun here, so let's see what happens.
And as I understand it, Susan, you did the stuff for Siri many years ago and didn't know that's what it was going to be used for. When I said you didn't know you were the voice of Siri, what I meant was until somebody told you, I think that's your voice in this phone, you really didn't know that was what that voice work was going to be used for.
Correct. I knew that the text-to-speech voices that I was recording in 2005 would be used for telephone systems, but at that time, other than Steve Jobs and a few other uber brains, no one really expected that the telephone system would be in your hand interacting with you.
Right.
So it was really a phenomenon.
By the way, I love your laugh. I think Siri should laugh once in a while. Did you record a laugh, or are they just not using it?
That to me, and I said, "Oh, I didn't know Siri laughed," and I thought, "That's right, she doesn't laugh." That is something they need to program in. I bet they will.
All right. Now, Susan, I'm very curious about the process. When you are recording text-to-speech, or speech-to-text, as they call it, and you've done other answering machine things and things like that, do they have you just read the dictionary? I mean, or do they give you phrases? And how long does that take to get an entire language bank down?
Well, it takes a long time. The initial recordings were 4 hours a day for a month. And I was reading all kinds of, sometimes nonsensical sentences so that they could get the greatest combination of sounds in the English language. They were trying to create any combination that you could possibly get of vowels, consonants, diphthongs, etc. And then afterwards, they would go in and extract the sounds that they needed to create new sentences, which is called concatenation. So it's actually the process that's really astounding. It's I was just lucky that it was my voice that was chosen. I'm just the little human component in all this. But the amazing thing is the technology and the number of potential responses that they had to come up with in the programming of this thing. It's absolutely amazing.
I don't mean this in any weird way, but it's a little. I know, but I'm about to
Here
say.
it comes.
But it's a little bit of a turn on to talk to you because you're the human component, as you put it, of this creature that has had no human component. In other words, like when when Siri came out, I thought, well, this is pretty fantastical because speech to text took a long time, and it was very experimental for a long time.
Right, and it was very clunky for a really long time. It was like, hello, how are you today? You know?
And yet I hear in you, now what's interesting is you don't sound like Siri, and Siri doesn't sound like you, but I can hear the components. For example, you described it. They didn't actually record you saying everything Siri says. They recorded all of the sounds of the English language, and a computer puts them together, so that's why she sounds a little more mechanical than you, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's just the whole text-to-speech and concatenation process. And as, technology improves, it will get smoother and less clunky, and of course there'll be new voices and all kinds of changes. It's just going to keep getting better. Sadly,
with your voice,
because it's probably going to put us out of work. But
with your voice, will they need you to come back in and now with more feeling, or will they just use everything you gave them forever? And do you get residuals?
Well, they will probably. I'm not sure if they're going to need to call me in because I did several months of updates for them last year. So
okay.
I think they probably have about enough of me as they could possibly use.
Does it ever freak you out to imagine the weird stuff people have asked your robotic voice, or do you try not to think about it?
No, because it's I really don't connect to that because it's Siri is actually a piece of technology. She's not me, and to tell you the truth, I don't really have that great a relationship or daily relationship with Siri because I had just bought the iPhone 4 when the 4S came out, and so I didn't have Siri for the longest time. Now that I have an iPhone 5S, I'm sure going to be getting to know her better. But at first, it was a little bit creepy for me to talk. As I always said, I talk to myself enough as it is. I don't need to talk to Siri.
This isn't your first talking machine gig either, right? I mean, you were one of the first talking cash machines. Well,
actually, I just did the jingle for that machine because that machine wasn't interactive at the time. It was the first cash machine, at least in Atlanta, and that was pretty funny. I have a history of being a machine.
Aside from Siri, who's your favorite character? Is it Betty Boop?
I do love Betty Boop. I really do, but I love to do characters, and so there are a lot of favorites. As I've said before, I just feel incredibly grateful that I've been able to make a living doing the things that I love, and so pretty much the nice thing about doing voice work and being a musician is every day is different, and every job is new and fresh, and so that's a very fun thing. So I'm very grateful.
All right. Susan, does your husband think it's cool that you're Siri?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He and my son are big fans.
Like, does he ever play one of you against the other?
No.
Siri said it was okay.
Yeah, right.
Susan Bennett. Susan, thanks a lot. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Bye. There she is. 7:52. It's amazing.